My name is Emma, and at 25, I had recently graduated from university. I'm not one to brag, but I'm known for my dedication and patience. Throughout my life, I've always focused quietly and diligently on my studies, maintaining reasonably high grades. I have dreams that I aspire to fulfill, and while I'm content with my daily life, there is a significant worry that haunts me. One day, within moments of my father's funeral, my mother Linda and my sister Olivia confronted me. Their intentions were clear. They planned to sell our family home and move into a luxury condo. But that wasn't the most shocking part. They demanded that I relinquish my right to our father's inheritance. "You're not thinking you'll get a dime of our father's inheritance, are you?" Linda sneered. My sister Olivia chimed in, her voice dripping with cruelty. "Or face a horrifying mask of cruelty." Olivia's boyfriend stood beside her, his laughter adding insult to injury. I couldn't believe it. Our father's funeral had just concluded, and here they were, talking about these things as if it were just a casual conversation. "You're the absolute worst," I finally snapped. "I can't stand this anymore. I'm cutting ties with you all." My words hung in the air, heavy with tension. Just as I shouted those words, the doorbell rang, interrupting our family feud. I went to answer it, feeling a mix of emotions and not knowing what to expect. Standing on the doorstep was a man who seemed vaguely familiar, though I couldn't quite place him. I greeted him with a hesitant, "Hello?" "My condolences for your loss," he said with a deep bow. His name, he introduced, was Mr. Anderson. His presence was unexpected and puzzling, but I invited him inside, wanting to know more about the purpose of his visit. Little did I know that Mr. Anderson's arrival would set in motion a series of events that would change my life forever. I led Mr. Anderson into our living room, still bewildered by his sudden appearance. He seemed composed and professional, which provided some comfort amidst the chaos that had erupted in my family. "My name is Emma," I said, introducing myself again, hoping to jog his memory about where we might have met before. Mr. Anderson offered a warm smile. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Emma. I know this is a difficult time for you, but I'm here to help." I couldn't help but feel intrigued by this attorney assigned by my father. I gestured to the sofa, inviting him to take a seat. As I settled down across from him, I couldn't contain my curiosity any longer. "Mr. Anderson, may I ask what brings you here? Did my father have any legal matters that needed attention?" He nodded, his demeanor serious. "Yes, your father did have some legal matters to address. But before we dive into that, could you tell me a bit more about yourself and your family?" I hesitated for a moment, unsure of how much to disclose to a stranger. However, there was something about Mr. Anderson's presence that made me feel comfortable. I shared the basics of our family structure, explaining how my mother, Linda, and my sister, Olivia, had presented me with their plans to sell our family home and claim our father's inheritance, leaving me with nothing. Mr. Anderson listened attentively, his expression unreadable. "I see," he said. "Thank you for sharing that with me, Emma. Now, let's discuss the reason I'm here." With that, he reached into his briefcase and pulled out a stack of documents. He handed one of them to me, and I realized it was my father's will. I scanned the document, my heart racing as I read the words carefully. "In his will," Mr. Anderson began, "your father designated you as the sole beneficiary of his inheritance." I couldn't believe my eyes. My father had chosen me as the recipient of his estate. The shock of the revelation left me speechless. My thoughts raced as I tried to process this unexpected turn of events. Meanwhile, Mr. Anderson continued, "Your father also designated me as the executor of his will. He had some concerns about how his assets would be handled after his passing." I looked up at Mr. Anderson, feeling a mix of gratitude and confusion. Why did my father choose me, and why did he have concerns about his assets? Mr. Anderson leaned forward, his eyes focused on mine. "Your father knew you better than anyone else, Emma. He appreciated your dedication and kindness. As for his concerns, well, they are related to the way your family has been handling his assets recently." The mention of my family's actions sent a chill down my spine. What had they been doing, and what had my father seen that troubled him? As Mr. Anderson continued to explain, I realized that my journey was about to take an unexpected and challenging turn. With the weight of my father's will still sinking in, Mr. Anderson and I sat in the living room, deep in conversation. I couldn't help but wonder what my family had been doing with my father's assets that had caused him concern. "Emma," Mr. Anderson began, "I understand that this is a lot to take in. Your father had entrusted me with his wishes, and he wanted you to be aware of certain matters." I nodded, eager to learn more. "Please, tell me everything," Mr. Anderson continued. "Your father was aware of how your family had been handling his assets. He was concerned about the extravagant spending and the way they were squandering the insurance money." I frowned, realizing the severity of the situation. "They've been spending the insurance money recklessly?" Mr. Anderson nodded. "Yes, that's correct. They've purchased a luxury condominium, an expensive car, and indulged in lavish spending on various luxuries. Meanwhile, you've been left to handle all the caregiving and household chores on your own." The truth hit me like a ton of bricks. While I had been caring for my father, my family had been living a life of luxury at his expense. The anger and betrayal I felt were overwhelming, but I tried to keep my emotions in check. "Your father," Mr. Anderson continued, "was aware of their actions but chose not to confront them. He hoped that they would change their ways. However, he decided to take legal measures to ensure that you, his beloved daughter, would be protected." Tears welled up in my eyes as I thought about my father's love and concern for me. "I can't believe they would do this to him," I whispered, my voice choked with emotion. Mr. Anderson placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "Your father had a message for you, Emma. He wanted you to know how much he appreciated your dedication and kindness. He wanted you to be happy." I wiped away my tears and nodded. "I'll do whatever it takes to honor his wishes." As we continued our discussion, Mr. Anderson explained that he had been entrusted with overseeing the distribution of my father's inheritance. He also mentioned the importance of upholding my father's values of kindness and righteousness. Deep down, I knew that my path was clear. I needed to pursue a career that would allow me to advocate for justice, just as my father had hoped. I looked at Mr. Anderson with determination in my eyes. "I want to become a lawyer, like you, Mr. Anderson. I want to ensure that justice prevails." He smiled warmly. "I believe you have the potential to make a great lawyer, Emma. I'll be here to guide you every step of the way." With Mr. Anderson's support and my father's memory as my driving force, I knew that I was embarking on a new journey, one that would be filled with challenges and opportunities to make a difference. In the days that followed Mr. Anderson's visit, I continued to reflect on my father's love and the responsibilities he had entrusted to me. It was clear that he had seen through my family's actions and wanted to ensure that I would be protected. One evening, my phone rang and I saw my father's name on the caller ID. My heart skipped a beat and I quickly answered the call. "Dad? Hello?" I said, my voice filled with both excitement and concern. A weak but familiar voice responded, "Emma, it's been a while." Tears welled up in my eyes as I heard my father's voice. "Dad, it's so good to hear from you. Are you doing okay? It's nighttime there, right? How's work?" My father let out a soft sigh. "I'd like to say I'm fine, but I've been having headaches lately. I'm planning to go see a doctor soon." Worry washed over me. "Please take care of yourself, Dad. You mean everything to me." My father's voice warmed with affection. "How's your schoolwork? Is it going well?" I smiled through my tears. "Thanks to you, everything is going well. I'm studying hard to achieve my dream." "That's my girl," my father said with pride. "You're always so diligent. Remember what I always say? Be righteous and kind, right?" I nodded, even though he couldn't see it. "Don't worry, Dad. I'm doing my best." "That's my Emma," he said softly. "I'll bring lots of souvenirs when I come home next time." We continued to talk, sharing stories and laughter, despite the physical distance between us. My father's voice was a comforting presence, and I cherished every moment of our conversation. After that conversation, I hung up the phone, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for the father who had always been there for me. My family was well off, thanks to my elite father who had worked tirelessly around the world. Although he had often been away from home, he had showered me with love whenever we had the chance to meet. I adored him dearly, and he had been my rock, providing me with the strength to endure the challenges that my family had thrown my way. His words echoed in my mind, "Be righteous and kind, Maggie." It was a mantra that had guided me throughout my life, and it would continue to do so as I faced the trials that lay ahead. Several months passed, and I had just graduated from university. I had put my dreams on hold to care for my father, dedicating myself to his well-being. My mother, Linda, and my sister, Olivia, continued to live their lives extravagantly, seemingly oblivious to the sacrifices I was making. One day, shortly after my graduation, a chilling event occurred. My mother, Linda, burst into my room, her face as pale as a ghost. She looked distraught, and I could tell something was terribly wrong. "Emma, that is," she stammered, struggling to find the words. My heart raced as I waited for her to continue. It was clear that something had happened to my father. Linda finally managed to speak. "Your father collapsed at the airport as soon as he returned home. He's been rushed to the hospital." I felt a wave of shock and fear wash over me. My father, who had always been a pillar of strength, had now fallen ill. Without a second thought, I rushed to his side. Olivia, my sister, accompanied us to the hospital. The doctor informed us that our father had likely suffered a stroke. Despite extensive treatment, his condition barely improved. He was left with severe physical paralysis and struggled to speak properly. It was heartbreaking to see him in such a vulnerable state. As I dedicated myself to caring for my father, I couldn't help but plead with my mother and sister to help. "Mom, Ashley, if you helped with Dad's care once in a while, I'm sure he'd be really happy." Their response, however, was always the same. "We're too busy. We've left Dad's care to you." My father's condition deteriorated, and I found myself taking on more responsibilities. I ensured he could see outside by keeping the curtains open, prepared specially crafted meals for him, and arranged fresh flowers daily to brighten his room. I even sought help from professional caregivers, but I did everything with all my heart. Remembering my father, who had worked tirelessly for us and showered us with love, I was determined to do everything I could for him. Whenever times got tough, I would recall his words, "Maggie, always be righteous and kind." Those words gave me the strength to carry on, even in the face of adversity. One day, while cleaning the house, I overheard a conversation between Linda and Olivia that left me in shock. They were talking about my father's insurance money and his inheritance. "Thanks to Dad's insurance money," Linda said with a smirk, "I was able to buy the bag I wanted." Olivia chimed in, "I know, right? Thanks, Dad. Maybe I should get a new wallet, too." My heart sank as I listened to their callous remarks. They were celebrating their purchases with the money meant for my father's care. But what Linda said next was even more shocking. "If Dad were gone, we'd receive a few $100 million from his life insurance and inheritance," she said casually. "He's been saving up through his job and investments." Olivia eagerly joined in. "Wow, Mom, then we should totally buy a luxury condo. And my boyfriend could live with us." Linda added, "I wish Dad would hurry up and die." I couldn't bear to listen any longer, and I quietly left the scene. My father was struggling to stay alive, and yet they were spending his insurance money and dreaming about a luxury condo from his inheritance, wishing for him to die sooner. The anger and despair I felt were overwhelming, but I knew I couldn't confront them without saddening my father further. So I pretended I hadn't heard their conversation and continued to devote myself to his care. Days turned into weeks, and I continued to care for my father with unwavering dedication. Despite the growing resentment I felt towards my mother, Linda, and my sister, Olivia, their selfishness and callousness knew no bounds, and it was clear that they had no intention of supporting our father in his time of need. I received help from professional caregivers, but I made sure to be actively involved in every aspect of my father's care. I would talk to him, read his favorite books, and do my best to keep his spirits up, even though his condition had not shown significant improvement. Every day was a struggle, but I was driven by my father's words. "Maggie, always be righteous and kind." Those words were a reminder of the values he had instilled in me, and they became my guiding principles. One evening, as I sat by my father's bedside, he managed to muster a few words. "Maggie, you're my rock." Tears welled up in my eyes as I held his hand gently. "Dad, I'm here for you always." He smiled weakly, and his eyes filled with gratitude. It was moments like these that made me determined to continue caring for him despite the difficulties. However, a few months later, my father suffered a recurrence of his stroke, and his condition deteriorated rapidly. He was now completely dependent on me for his care, unable to move or communicate properly. It was a heartbreaking sight, but I refused to give up on him. I had to put my dreams on hold once again, but I knew it was the right thing to do. My father had always supported me in pursuing my goals, and now it was my turn to support him in his time of need. As the days went by, I noticed that Linda and Olivia had become even more distant. They rarely visited my father, and when they did, it was only for a brief moment. They continued to live their lives of luxury, buying designer goods and going on overseas trips, all funded by my father's money. One day, I overheard them talking about their plans to sell our family home and move into a luxury condo. They seemed more interested in their own desires than in my father's well-being. "We'll get a lot from your father's inheritance," Linda said, her voice filled with greed. "So we decided to sell this house and live in a luxury condo. Emma, you should leave." I couldn't believe the audacity of their words. My father was still alive, and they were already making plans to claim his inheritance. It was clear that they had no respect for him or his wishes. "I can't believe you guys," I said, my voice trembling with anger. "I'm cutting ties with both of you." Their response was callous and dismissive. They didn't seem to care about the pain they were causing me or the suffering our father was enduring. As I stood there, seething with anger and frustration, the doorbell rang, interrupting our confrontation. I opened the door, not knowing what to expect. A man stood on the doorstep, a middle-aged gentleman in a suit and glasses. He greeted me with a polite bow. "Good evening. My condolences for your loss." I invited him inside, wondering who he was and what had brought him here. He introduced himself as Mr. Watson, an attorney assigned by my father. My heart raced as I realized that my father had taken legal measures to protect me and his assets. Mr. Watson's presence was a glimmer of hope in the midst of the turmoil that had engulfed my family. As Mr. Watson stepped into our living room, my heart pounded with anticipation. I couldn't help but wonder what my father had arranged through his attorney and how it might impact the ongoing turmoil within our family. "Emma," Mr. Watson began, "I understand that this is a difficult time for you, and I'm here to help you navigate through some important matters." I nodded, grateful for his presence and guidance. "Please tell me everything." Mr. Watson proceeded to explain the purpose of his visit. "Your father, Robert, had entrusted me with his will and certain legal matters regarding his assets. He wanted to ensure that you are well taken care of, Emma." Tears welled up in my eyes as I listened. It was reassuring to know that my father had taken steps to protect my interests. "Before I proceed," Mr. Watson continued, "I would like to read your father's will to you. It contains important instructions regarding his estate." I nodded, eager to hear the contents of the will. Mr. Watson retrieved a document from his briefcase and began to read aloud. "I, Robert, hereby bequeath as follows. I leave all property belonging to me to my beloved daughter, Emma." I gasped in astonishment. My father had left everything to me. It was a stark contrast to the expectations of my mother, Linda, and my sister, Olivia, who had been plotting to claim his inheritance. Mr. Watson continued, "The will also designates you, Emma, as the executor." I felt a mixture of emotions, gratitude, responsibility, and a sense of duty. My father had placed his trust in me, and I was determined to honor his wishes. Mr. Watson then proceeded to explain that my father had been aware of the reckless spending by Linda and Olivia, as well as their disregard for his well-being. He had commissioned Mr. Watson to investigate their actions, and the attorney had uncovered evidence of their extravagance. "In this case," Mr. Watson said, "it is unlikely that the distribution of the inheritance will be deemed unfair. Your father's concerns were well-founded." I couldn't help but feel a sense of vindication. My father's decision to protect me and his assets was justified. However, Linda and Olivia were not pleased with the revelation. They argued that they should be entitled to a share of the inheritance, citing legal provisions. Mr. Watson calmly responded, "You do have the right to claim a statutory reserve from the inheritance, as prescribed by the civil law. However, given the evidence of your extravagant spending and disregard for your father's well-being, it is unlikely that such a claim will be successful." Their faces paled as they realized the implications of their actions. My father had planned meticulously to ensure that justice prevailed, and Mr. Watson was here to uphold his wishes. As Linda and Olivia grudgingly accepted the reality of the situation, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. My father had entrusted me with his legacy, and I was determined to use it to honor his memory and the values he had instilled in me, righteousness and kindness.